Pretty
Good.
well. Happy end of Pride Month.
Yes.
I'm
We made
exhausted.
it.
Anyone else?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah, I'm very exhausted.
I bet. I bet.
Well, thank you both for chatting with me today. And did
Of
Lamont give
course.
you a little rundown of how this will go? Okay.
Briefly, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just it'll go for about 10 minutes and
Okay.
I'll yeah, not super long. It'll be pretty conversational, asking you about the project, and Lamont will produce on the back end, so you may see the three shot or you may see just yourself talking. That's just
Got
producing
it.
on the back end. Yeah. So,
Great. Great.
mhm,
Cool.
great.
Cool.
All right. Yeah.
Sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Are you both in New York?
We are, yeah.
How was Pride?
I mean, I feel like we were doing so much last call stuff that I didn't really get to
Yeah.
do Pride like I usually do Pride,
Yeah.
but good.
Good, good, good.
Yeah.
Um, what was I going to ask you? Gosh, I already forgot what I was going to ask you.
It's been a
Oh,
month. Exactly, to your
Howard,
point.
it's Howard Gertler and Anthony
Yes.
Corona or Corona?
Corona.
Corona. Okay, great.
Corona.
Thank you. Great. All right. Okay. Yeah, I'm in LA and I'm
Oh, you are?
yes, and I'm shooting myself in the I shot myself in the foot. I'm so mad at myself because I had gotten an invite to the vice president's house for that incredible
Oh
event that
yeah.
she threw last night, and I was like, "Oh, it's Pride Month. I can't get to DC." And I was looking at the photos, just saying, "I should have figured it out. I should have found a
Mm.
way." Two of my colleagues sent me pictures of them with Ariana DeBose, and I was so jealous.
I'd love to tell you it'll happen again for you, but I don't know how that works. So
Yeah, I don't
I hope it happens again and
know.
go next time.
Yes, 100%. All right. How you doing, Lamont? You good? Okay.
Tracy, have you gotten a chance to have they sent you any of the episodes or anything? Have you gotten a chance to watch any of the
Oh
series?
yeah, I did. I watched the
Oh,
entire
cool.
thing. Yeah.
Oh, great, great.
Yeah. And they kept asking me, "You've watched it all, right?" I'm like, yes. But because SAG-AFTRA may strike, all these junkets got shoved, and
Hmm.
oh, all the junkets got shoved to the last 2 weeks of June. So by the end of this week, I will have done 12 junkets. Um,
Oh my God.
Oh my
so
Well,
I
God.
thank
have
you for making time
watched.
for us.
Yeah,
I've
seriously.
I've watched so much that my brain is just it doesn't retain anything anymore. So,
Yeah, that's a lot.
but yes, I did. It's a fascinating documentary, and yeah, I didn't know about. I don't know what was going on. I was traveling the country a little bit, but I'm from Connecticut, so I'm like,
Oh, me
why
too.
didn't why didn't I know about this? Where are you from?
I'm from Enfield. It's like,
Oh, I,
yeah, like a half an hour below Hartford.
well, I
It's
used to
something.
I worked for the Journal Inquirer
Oh, yeah.
earlier, yeah, and I had to cover the Enfield Board of Education, and I was like, please, oh, and Summers, like
Oh, wow. Oh,
the town of
yeah,
Summers, and I was
of
like,
course.
please, God, get me out of here.
Sure. I think great,
Yeah,
great.
great. Okay, so I'll just do a little countdown and introduce you. All right, 3, 2. Hi there. Welcome, Howard Gertler and Anthony Corona from Last Call When a Serial Killer Stalked New York. Thank you so much for being here with me. Sorry, stalked queer New York. That's very important. Thank you for being here with me.
Of
Thank you
course,
for
thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah, of course. Well, congratulations on the documentary. It's incredibly important and it's so well told. So I first just want to say congratulations. And then I'd like to go to each of you and ask you when this story entered your consciousness, because as I was saying off screen, I wasn't aware of it back in the day. So, Howard, when did you first become aware of this story?
I first became aware of the story when Story Syndicate and HBO sent me a copy of Elon's book.
Mm,
And that
wow.
was
So,
like in late 2020. Yeah. So during, at the time it was happening, I was like 18 or 19. I was in college and it didn't sort of cross my radar at the time. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And how about for you, Anthony?
I got I got the manuscript of the book a year
Mm.
before it was published, and I was asked if I would consider it to direct a series on it. And I turned it down because I was very worried about directing true crime, and I was more worried about the potential of re-victimizing the community and all the implications there. And so I passed on the project. And then a year later, Howard asked me to go to dinner and said he was considering working on a project called Last Call, and sort of spun the lens a bit and said, I think we have the opportunity to make this a real social justice conversation. And
Mhm.
rereading the book and thinking of it that way, it completely changed my idea of the possibilities that were present in the book.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. And yeah, so I should give background, of course, that this is a documentary about a serial killer who was stalking queer bars in New York City in the early 90s. And I wonder, would you talk a little bit about that social justice aspect and how you went about finding some of the subjects who spoke so eloquently about the time, who were, active? A lot of them were activists back in the day.
Howard, do you want to take that?
Yeah.
Do you want me
Yeah,
to?
I mean, no, I can start it.
Okay, great.
Something that really made an impact on both me and Anthony and us wanting to tell this story was that the story not only gets at the nature of anti-queer violence and where
Mhm.
that comes from, but also what queer folks and community activists have done to counteract that violence. And the community group at the center of this is the New York City Anti-Violence Project, and it was one of many local anti-violence projects at the time and still exist. And there's like a national coalition of them as well. And Elon, when writing the book, had spoken with some of them, so we knew they were aware of the story. Like they lived it, they were aware of the story. But when we were deciding how we wanted to frame the show, which is very complementary to the book, we knew we really wanted to center not only the victims and their loved ones, but the work that these activists did. And so then it was doing that kind of outreach and letting them know our intent, and
Mhm.
you know, sitting down for them to interview them.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And Anthony, since Howard spoke about the victims' families, and would you touch on some of those interviews and conducting them, and how those resonated with you?
I think Howard and I both came from a place of immense sensitivity when it came to this
Mm.
subject matter. Both of us hadn't really dipped our toe in true crime. And so our first um, our first concern was just being very sensitive to the families, and the activists, because they have to like relive what they did then, which can be traumatic. Um,
Mhm.
so I feel like we approached every single interview with an immense amount of sensitivity, and we allowed the interview subjects to really drive the conversation,
Mhm.
and steer the conversation in terms of where we were going. So I think it was actually like every single interview we had ended with like the subject saying this was an incredibly cathartic experience and being very
Good.
happy with
Mhm.
their journey in sitting down with us. Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you for that. And I wonder, one of the pieces of this that really kind of sat with me was this was the early 90s, and New York City, especially, HIV/AIDS had already ravaged the queer community there. And now there was this uh, terror on top of that. And I wonder if you would talk a little bit about how that enters the story. And I'll go to you, Howard.
Yeah, one thing we touch on is to like understand what the AVP was dealing with at the time that this case sort of crossed their desk was, violence against queer people and HIV and AIDS during one of the heights of the AIDS epidemic was aggravating that kind of assault. And we talk about that in the show as well. And, the state sort of institutional response, whether it's law enforcement, health systems, et cetera, the way they responded to people with HIV and queer people with HIV in with whether it was indifference or antipathy that activists needed to change, did have some resonance, we felt, with what the AVP was dealing with as well in terms of violence against queer people.
Great. Thank you for that. I'm going to pause for a moment. Lamont, did we lose Anthony? Okay. Oh. Good old technology.
Yeah. But that's like, what Bea Hansen was doing when she was hired at AVP. She was director of client services, and, HIV AIDS was one of her, and sort of HIV AIDS aggravated violence was one of her, main sort of subject areas.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that additional information.
Yeah.
And Howard, do you want to wait for Anthony, or should we just kind of
continue?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's wait.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anthony.
Welcome back.
Hi. Yeah. Did you give away the whole ending?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we paused a moment, and Howard gave me a great answer speaking about HIV/AIDS. So I'm just going to frame a new question for you, Anthony.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So, Anthony, one of the key pieces of this entire series is the role of the police and their antipathy toward LGBTQ plus people. And would you talk about interviewing some of the police and kind of weaving that piece of it into the story? Because, obviously there's echoes of that today. So it's so incredibly important.
Yeah, I think my job, and I know Howard felt this way, was not to guide the investigators down any path, but to allow space to figure out where the blind spots may have been in the investigation, and also what they did really well. And so, again, like the victims' families, like their friends, like AVP, we allowed those conversations to just sort of unfold naturally over 4 or 5 hours. And what came out of it was very much just how the investigators feel, what they were thinking at the time, and how they were handling the case. So we really just allowed space for people to talk and relive what they were going through at the time.
Yeah. Thank you. And I want to go back to you for a moment, Howard. Would you, I'm sorry. I lost my place.
You're okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. Hang on. Where was I? I told you my brain is so full. Let's see. Where did I want to go? Police and, actually, yeah, it was a simple question. That's why I forgot it. Oh my gosh. So Howard, when you were creating this film or, doing your research for the documentary, did you come across anything that surprised you in either what some of the families said or some of the activists or even some of these investigators who had worked on the case many decades ago?
I think that was, for both me and Anthony, the excitement of making the show is finding all this archival footage that we weren't aware of when we were reading the book. And one thing that we learned is Gay USA, which is like a cable queer-led news show that's been around for decades. They covered this case from beginning to end, and almost all of our main characters, activist-wise, were featured on the show at one point. We have an amazing co-producer, Megan Doherty, and an amazing producer, Youssef Al-Suhaimi, and they found subjects for our show that were not part of the book. For various reasons. And so being able to have conversations with these folks, some of them whom are family members, some of whom were talking about this for the first time, was really meaningful for the show, and I think really cathartic for some of those folks to sit down with us.
Great. Thank you for that. And then, Anthony, as the docuseries comes out, we are looking at several hundred anti-LGBTQ plus bills by craven politicians who are looking to demonize queer people. And I wonder, can you speak to what extent this story is a cautionary tale for how the othering of queer people sets us up for violence?
I mean, I don't want to give too much away in terms of
Mm.
the episodes, but there's definitely towards the end of the series this mirroring and us showing the cyclical nature of homophobia within the political system. So we definitely tried our best to show that it's not over. It's not like, yeah, it's not like everything is rainbows and triangles right now. It is bad, and we wanted to show
Mhm.
that that there is this very cyclical thing happening that mirrors the early '90s when our story takes place.
Yeah, thank you for that. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to give you one opportunity, Howard and Anthony. Is there something that you would like for folks to know specifically about Last Call that we haven't touched on? And I'll ask you first, Howard.
I mean, I just to off of what Anthony was just saying, in addition to what is a cyclical nature of homophobia and transphobia, especially that might come from the political sphere, we're hoping that the show also provides some sort of guidance in terms of what community activists can do in the face of that and also succeed.
Great. Thank you so much. And how about for you, Anthony? Was there something else you'd like to add?
We're hoping that this goes out wider to people that aren't aware of the anti-queer violence movement, that aren't aware of the queer community in general, or have biases, or have, we want this to go out as wide as it can. And I think HBO is an incredible platform, and the genre of true crime that we've sort of used as the Trojan horse to sort of get this larger anti-queer violence story in is the perfect thing to bring in a whole new crowd of people that don't know anything about this. So I'm hoping we reach a whole new audience. Yeah.
Yes, incredible. Well, thank you so much. And congratulations on
Thank you.
Last Call, when a serial killer stalked queer New York. Thank you to producer Howard Gertler and director Anthony Corona. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yes,
Well, thanks, Tracy.
of course.
Thank you.
Great. Cool.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Sorry, I tripped over my words a little. I am
It's all right.
stumbling today on Pride Month.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Thank
Fine.
you. Well, yes, thank you for making this. It's a story I was not aware of as a queer person who, is the former editor in chief of The Advocate. I had never heard of this story, so I really appreciate that you're putting this out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, Lamont. Hey, thanks for that. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know what was going on. And then I was really distracted because I don't know, StreamClick is making me look funky, like really different from what I'm used to. So I got distracted a few times by the way I look. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. And then what was I going to say? Are you doing the one at 12:30? I have another interview in 8 minutes. I think. Let me check with Caroline. I'm actually really a little behind the 8 ball, but yeah, let me check. Thanks, Lamont. I'm gonna go off for a minute. All right, bye.